We have with us today Grazzia Mendoza Chirinos from Tesol in Honduras. She will talk to us about education in crisis, how to overcome the challenges. Grazzia Maria Mendoza Chirinos has 2 master's degrees, one in international education and one in Tesol. She is a U.S. State Department alumna recognized for project development for teachers' professional growth projects. She has been in the Tesol field for 27 years. She's the founder of Health at Tesol, past president for regional Latin American Tesol groups, member of Tesol International Association Board of Directors, and at present, she is an education specialist for the U.S. government at the USIA Honduras. She will be talking to us about how crisis triggers altering situations in learning. These situations may or may not be positive. This plenary will explore how to overcome the challenges during crisis and which considerations teachers should take into account in the face of these challenges. She will present options for well-being of learners and teachers and will propose ideas that can be adapted to specific contexts. Welcome to Paraguay through Zoom. Grazzia, we are delighted to have you here, and we hope this presentation, together with our wonderful team of volunteers, we're helping put this together. And Eliana is our host, and our co-host is, I think, Patricia or someone else that I don't have the sheet here, but thank you for being here, and go ahead with your wonderful presentation.
Thank you everyone for having me. I am really excited to be here today and to be sharing and also learning with you, because yesterday for me it was a great learning experience, and I enjoyed all the conferences and all the work that all the presenters had. And as I was saying, I am very excited to be here because it's my first engagement as a Tesol International board member with an affiliate. So this is a very exciting experience for me. And like Valentina was saying, today we're going to talk about education in crisis and how to overcome these challenges. So let me know if you can see the presentation well, if it shows correctly. I cannot see the chat. I imagine that sorry about that. So I imagine somebody will be helping me with that. Okay.
I will be helping you with that, Grazzia. So yeah, go ahead, and I will be reading the comments and questions, and I will be posting on the chat. So whatever you want me to type up on the chat, let me know, and I will do it for you.
Perfect. Thank you. So in order to start our conversation, it is important to know what we're going to be talking about. And we're going to be talking about what education in crisis and conflict is, so that we have a context prepared. And then we're going to discuss several things around this. We're also going to have some practical activities, and that can either be through break rooms or through breakout rooms or through the chat, whichever works well, because you know, with technology, sometimes things work, sometimes they don't, but we are flexible enough and adapt to those circumstances. So this is what our outline looks like and what our session will look like, and the topics that I will be discussing this morning with you. So let's start by talking about what is it? What is crisis and conflict? And crisis and conflict is different, and it looks different depending on where you are in the world. In some parts of the world, it can be war. In some parts of the world, it can be being displaced and having to migrate as a refugee to another country. In other countries, it can be hunger. And for example, if I think about Honduras, our crisis and conflict is gangs and gang interventions in communities that prevent education from happening. And this is an issue that affects 80 million children worldwide. And when we think about educating in crisis and conflict and the considerations that we need to have for these settings, we need to keep in mind that we need to be providing safe learning opportunities for our learners. We need to rebuild education systems if necessary. And also we need to find ways to prevent and mitigate whatever violence or whatever conflict exists in schools or in school settings. So I would like if possible, to have a breakout room for 3 minutes and have people answer in those small groups, what are examples of education in crisis in your country? Because I told you right now some of the examples in my country, but I would like for you to tell me what are examples of this in your country, in Paraguay, or in the country that you come from. So we can either do it through a breakout room or we can do it through the chat, whichever is easier. But I want you to give me that information to get a notion of what your context looks like.
Well, the chat will most definitely be easier, but we can have breakout rooms if you want.
No, let's do the chat. If the chat works, that's okay with me.
So, so everybody please write on the chat then what Gracia had just asked. What are examples of education in crisis in our respective countries? Please start writing right now. I can share, for example, that we have at the moment, for example, here we're having a drought in many places in the countryside and the river, connectivity, COVID-19, lack of access to the internet, a lack of parents' education, low budget for public education, lack of well-trained teachers, technology gap, poor connectivity. So a lot to do with connectivity. We're now also having the drought situation, students being shy or uninterested. So difficulties, poor infrastructure for schools, floods when we have them, extreme poverty, digital learning. So let's see if we have any more. Anybody else would like to share some other examples of education in crisis? Violence, home violence, overwhelmed teachers, lack of student participation in their own learning.
So by listening to these things that you are reading to me and that you are telling me, I can see a lot of similarities in the region, not only in Paraguay, not only in Honduras, but I can see similarities in the region because these are thoughts that we get from people from other countries as well. So it's interesting to see how similar our region is. And it was part of the conversation we had last night during that networking event that you had. And it's interesting to see how our problems are similar. So maybe these ideas that I will give you today will be useful to think about potential solutions. Thank you for that. So when we think about education, who are the people involved and who are those main stakeholders? Well, of course, we have the governments, right? The governments are the leaders in education and they are the ones that make those decisions on policy and ways in which we conduct education in our countries. They have that influence in curriculum and they have that influence in those standards through which we measure education in our countries. Also, the schools, they have that relevant role because they are the ones where children and youth go to educate themselves. Administration has a role because they are the ones that provide the financing. And then teachers, and I always say this when I'm doing these presentations and when I work with teachers, and I like to tell teachers that we have a huge responsibility as teachers in our role in education. And educators in general have this important role, but language educators have an even bigger role because we're not only teaching a language, we are in charge of teaching the culture of that language, the way in which to manage yourself in that language. And so our impact is even bigger than any other educator. So we have a huge responsibility in what we do. And then we also have, of course, the parents and caregivers and the children and youth. With the current situation, so throughout the years, we have been analyzing how reading levels, instruction levels, math levels, proficiency levels have been behaving. And the World Bank has made different studies. And in the last study that they made for reading, they said that the population is reading, only 53% of the population is able to read a simple text. And when we have situations of crisis, for example, the present sanitary crisis that we have, the health crisis that we have, this is even reduced more. And it can be a gap of 6 months to a year. So this is worrying, and it should worry us. But it shouldn't worry us to the point that we don't know what to do. It should worry us to the point that we take action and we find and look for solutions in our own context. What are the challenges for educators? Well, there are many uncertainties going on. Then we have the situation that crisis and conflict becomes normalized. We have communities in Honduras where they have gotten used to the gangs being there and the gangs telling them what to do and where to go. We have communities where students cannot go from one community to the other to attend school because the gang prohibits that. So, and when you ask them in the community, is this okay? They say, yes, it is okay. They take care of us. They make sure that we are safe, that we are not in danger. And it's normalizing the crisis and the conflict. So these uncertainties and this lack of equilibrium, it's a challenge for an educator, because if you are in a situation of this type of conflict, then you don't know what to do and you don't understand sometimes your role. And sometimes what happens is that teachers are not equipped with those tools that they need to face these challenges, right? And when we think about the current pandemic, schools are not the infrastructure where children used to attend the school, but the teachers are now the school, right? Because the teachers have created that school in their living room, in their kitchens, and are preparing those lessons to deliver to children in their homes. Now, this creates an additional stress because this is not a normal virtual setting for teaching. In a normal virtual setting for teaching, you have your space for teaching, and that's your intent, to teach from your home. But right now, you are at home as a teacher, taking care of your own family too. So it's not that normal virtual setting for delivering a lesson. So this creates that additional stress because there are many things that you need to be on top of besides teaching. And then we find that inequities are heightened because we see that there are many people that don't have access. We have this process of distance learning, and we have children that don't have access to virtual education. When I think about the statistics in my country, only 35% of children have access to a virtual learning context. And this is in the big cities. In the rural areas, there's no access to that. And then we add to that, well, yes, we have television and we have radio provided for them. And the silver lining for our country is that for once, our Ministry of Education has done a good job at providing solutions, but still people who have access to television and radio, it's only around a 28%. Where's the rest of what are the rest of the children doing? And we have tried to provide for them materials that are printed so that they can continue learning. And we have champion teachers that have walked that extra mile to go to their houses, deliver the materials, help them learn, help them and explain to them, help the parents, because we have a role for parents too, because parents are not teachers, not all of them. Right? And some of them, and I don't know in Paraguay, but I know that in Honduras, the level of schooling of our parents in rural areas is very low. So I cannot expect the parents to help them with things that are more complicated to that grade level, which they reached. And according to the WHO right now, 80% of children and youth worldwide are unable to attend classes face-to-face. And that's our current reality. Now, what are the things that we need to be aware of when we're talking about crisis, where situations are contextual? They are not the same. They are different everywhere you go, and solutions will be different. You cannot bring a solution from another country and just place it and use it that way. You need to adapt that. And this is also a slow process, right? It's not something that happens overnight, and crisis and conflict situations, it cannot be solved overnight. We have been working in this topic in Honduras for around 5 or 6 years, and we are still beginning. So this is not something that happens very quickly. And we need to keep that in mind because of expectations, right? Creating a culture of peace to promote a structural change. How do we bring strategies to create a culture of peace within our education community? And creating safe classroom environments. Those safe spaces in school where we don't allow violence to creep into the things that we do for education. Empowering the children in the classroom. How do we let the children have a voice? And yesterday's presentations were so great because they were talking about let the children, let the youth be creative, let them innovate. Don't put them in a box and tell them everybody has to do the same thing. No, everybody has to do a different thing because they have a different way of learning, because they have different ideas, and this allows them to innovate. Empower the teachers, right? We need to have teachers that are trained, that are continuously developing professionally. And this conference is an example of that effort. How do we empower the teachers to continuously develop professionally and be trained? And learn from the best practices. Also, again, sharing in these spaces, learning from others, listening to people from other countries allows us to broaden our perspectives and have ideas on how to do things in a different way. And we don't follow the same pattern of another country, but we adapt it to our realities and our context. Even within countries, our contexts are different. When you are teaching or when people are learning in crisis, you need to consider these things. You need to consider that there are opportunities for everybody, that these opportunities are equitable, that you are facilitating the process of learning, and that there needs to be continuous contact, especially right now when we are all virtual, we are all learning and talking to each other through a computer. That contact needs to be meaningful. And that was said very well yesterday during the sessions of the morning. How do we make sure that we keep children engaged and that we are engaged with teachers? Because this will help us have that feeling of trust and security and feel that we are, even though we are at home learning, feel that we are in an environment that is safe to express our ideas, to learn, to innovate, to create. So these are important elements that we need to take into account and that we need to take into consideration when we are promoting learning during a crisis. And any type of crisis, not only this pandemic, crisis in general. So another thing that I want to explore with you guys, and we're going to do it through the chat. What is my role as an educator in education and crisis? What do you think is your role as an educator in education and crisis? Tell me about that. I'm going to give you 1 minute to think, and then you could start posting in the chat, and then Valentina will help me with that.
Yes, some people already started writing. Inter-exchange among teachers is always a key to success as experience. Create safe environment, become an agent of change. So those are two things that people have written so far.
Become a change agent. Good. I like that they said that.
Create a safe environment.
Mm-hmm.
Text or video call other teachers to share experiences, support, and tips. Be a bridge.
Excellent.
Create confidence.
Great.
Use different resources. Use interesting activities. We have big issues to figure out, but challenge is always there. Give them a comfortable place to study. Student-centered activities. Compassion, understanding.
Love that. Compassion. Love that.
Acknowledge student participations, mistakes or not. Supportive and give help to students as we can. Provide to students a safe environment. Show interest, confidence in the topics that they have to learn. Be encouraging. Empathy.
Great. Great ideas. And those match with what I have brought to you as role of the teachers. So teachers need to have these elements in order to be facilitators of learning during times of crisis. You need to become a mentor, and somebody mentioned compassion. That's very important, right? You need to be able to have that compassion for others and also for yourself. And we're going to talk a little bit about that a little bit further along the line. When you have discussions in the classroom, don't have, and I know that sometimes it's important to talk about the negative feelings that we're having, because it gives us that cathartic possibility. But also including your discussions that are positive. Talk about dreams, talk about the future, talk about all the possibilities out there. Make sure that you create a place for discussion and potentiating creativity and innovation. Understand your students' needs and who they are. Esther and Glenda said it yesterday. Understanding who our learners are facilitates the way that we deliver or we craft or we tailor those classes for them. Have different teaching strategies, and somebody mentioned it. Use blended learning, use a free flipped classroom. Jennifer and Sylvia yesterday very effectively mentioned, have those critical discussions so that children and youth are starting to analyze critically, to have that critical thinking and be able to critique things and say, this is not working, I think it should be done this way. So having those critical reflections and those critical discussions is important. And empowerment, as I had mentioned before, it is important to give the children a space to lead, a space to follow, and space to create. It is also important for administrators to give teachers a space to lead, a space to follow, a space to create. As administrators, we cannot think that we have all the answers, because the teachers are the ones in the classroom, so they have that experience in the field, right? So we should be able to allow them to lead and create and come up with ideas and innovations and solutions. And as for self-care, make sure as a teacher you have your own mental breaks. You have that work-life balance. And I know from my experience in education for 27 years that we always take work home, and we need to plan our classes to make sure that we take work home only sometimes, because we need to give our family time also. If we don't create that balance, we're going to be burnt out very soon. It is important to fill your energy vessel. If you don't have positive energy within you, it is going to be very difficult to give that positive energy to others. So you need to make sure to continuously fill your vessel with positivity, and that comes with having a balance in your life. That's very important. Other things that we need to consider is that as teachers, we need to do this self-care process with us. And it comes in different ways. It's physical, it's emotional, it's social, and it's cognitive. When we talk about physical, it's resting, having a good night's sleep, being able to eat well, to exercise if you like to exercise, or to do other things that allow you to move. That's the physical aspect of self-care. Also emotional. Forgive yourself when you make a mistake. Sometimes teachers, we are very critical of our work, and we seem to think that we need to do things in a perfect way. It's not necessarily true. We make mistakes because we are humans, right? And we need to be able to forgive ourselves. Be positive. Be compassionate with yourself. That will help you be compassionate with others. Resilience. Teachers worldwide have proved during these circumstances that we are resilient and that we are able to adapt, we are flexible, and we quickly move towards maintaining our students' learning. So we have proved that we are resilient, and find ways in which you can manage stress. It can be as simple as having a little stress ball and using that when you are very stressed. That helps. That helps me sometimes when I'm stressed. The social aspect of self-care. Make sure you ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And somebody was saying it in the comments, have that support network, that community of teachers you can reach out and ask for help. It's not a bad thing to ask for help. Be a good listener, and also find people that are good listeners so that you can talk to them, right? Have healthy relationships. Avoid toxic relationships that are going to give you mental breakdowns. We don't need that. We need more positive relationships. And in the part of your cognitive self-care, make sure you practice mindfulness processes. Enjoy the silence, like the song, remember, the sounds of silence. Sometimes it's important to sit in silence and enjoy that silence in our life. It allows us to manage stress. So it's important to have those times when our mind goes blank and we are able to have those 5 minutes of nothing in our brain. Because if not, and I tell everybody this, when my brain has too much information, I think it's gonna go into a short circuit. So that can happen. Now, the role of parents. So parents play a role during times of crisis. And sometimes parents don't know what their role is. So it's our role as teachers to let them know that this is what they need to do. And we should facilitate that process for them and tell them that they need to be patient, right? There needs to be patient at home. The situation during a time of crisis is not normal. So it requires extra patience. And then we need to understand that there are limitations and that parents have certain abilities, and we need to tell the parents that so that they don't feel frustrated when the learning process doesn't happen as they had planned. And understand, especially in the current situation, that this is not the usual way for learning. Learning usually happens in the school building, right? In the classroom, managed by the teacher. Right now, we are trying to work together with parents to get this process of learning going. And it's important, and also somebody mentioned it in the comments, to establish routines, to establish a space for learning that's stimulating, right? And something that I tell parents that sometimes feel very stressed and overwhelmed by everything that they need to do is understand that if an assignment is not completed, it is not the end of the world, okay? The world is not going to cease to exist because an assignment was not completed, or if it was not completed with the highest expectation. There's room for failure, and within failure, we learn. So that's important to take into consideration. Now, what to do? And I tell this to everybody. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath and then continue. Have that support network that lets you express yourself, that lets you have that space for your cathartic moment, that lets you say, I am stressed today and I don't know what to do, and be a good listener to those people that need to be listened, right? And make sure that sometimes we want to give that person solutions, and that person only wants to be heard. So let's just listen to them and let them express everything they need to express. Create those habits, create those routines. And like Mary Curie said, we stop fearing that which we have learned to understand. So once we understand what the crisis is about and what is going on, we stop fearing it and we start coming up with solutions. So the key to teaching and educating in a crisis or conflict situation is understanding what is happening so that we can come up with the solutions. Now, keep in mind, there might be laws and policies that happen during times of crisis, or they might be laws and policies that we need to influence as teachers. There's a lot of work that we can do through the community, and the community is a strong connection to the school that needs to be strengthened. We have found in the work that we have done in Honduras that whenever we have the buying of the community, the schools in the area thrive. We have examples, for example, of communities where in rural areas, very poor areas, where the community sells coffee or sells goods, and they bring everything that they make from those sales to fix the school, to paint the school, to bring resources for the children, to pay for a teacher maybe that doesn't have a salary. So getting the buying from the community in education is key, and we have found that. Also, engaging the community in activities that are related to learning, that's very important. We have found, for example, in creating libraries for schools in Honduras, that we bring the community and we have and sorry for the people who don't speak Spanish, but this is the name in Spanish, El Abuelo Cuenta Cuentos, which is a grandmother or a grandfather that comes and tells stories, and parents that come and tell stories. Fathers, usually the father is not as engaged with the mother in Honduras. I don't know in Paraguay, but mothers are usually more engaged in the learning process and in the education activities. And engaging the fathers has been for us incredible, because it lets them see that their children are learning and how important education is. Because usually the father makes the decision, no, the children do not need to go to school. They need to come and help me in the farm, for example. Now, somebody mentioned this in the comments, and I liked it, because teachers in the classroom are the change agent. Teachers in education are the change agents, because they understand the issues. They do the planning to address the issues. They teach others and they train others and they bring in the community to support schools. So we are that change agent. That's why at the beginning I told you we have a huge responsibility in the work that we do, and we impact the lives of people forever. So the work that you do with your students, and I know it requires a lot of planning, but I know that we love what we do and we are passionate and committed to what we do. And having all that excess planning, yes, we are human and we get tired sometimes, but when we see the results, that is very satisfying for us. So in conclusion, crisis situations are uncertain and ever changing. It can be different things at different time. Right now, it's a health crisis and they affect people everywhere. We need to be patient and we need to be flexible and we need to support each other. If we are okay and we are feeling good, help somebody that is not feeling that good. And make sure you are looking at your peers and check if they need help. Ask them, what are you feeling? Why are you feeling like this? And if they accept your help, make sure you help them. Think about your well-being, your own well-being, and then think about the well-being of others. We are here to support each other. And this conference is a great example of what supporting each other means. Now I want you to think, because it is important whenever we attend a session, a plenary, a workshop, or a professional development training, to think about what to do with the information that I have learned. And I like to do that. And I always, for example, when we have our conferences in Honduras or when I give my sessions in other places, I always tell people, so what is your plan now with the information that you have learned? Maybe your plan is to learn a little bit more about the topic, or maybe your plan is to implement some of the ideas. So I want you to write in the chat, what is your plan right now to advocate for education in your context? And then Valentina is gonna help me with your ideas.
So please start writing on the chat. Gracia, as you were talking earlier, I want to relay some of the comments that people were making regarding things that they do to take care of themselves, walking outside, talking to other people, mentoring others, support groups, let me see. Some mentioned about, some mentioned that how the situation here in Paraguay is similar with communities where they support schools when the school involves them. So even if they're poor, they put money together to pay teachers. So we do share many similarities between what you're telling us and what we have here in our context. So some people are already starting to write their plan to advocate for education. And so one says here, encourage more people to be part of our organization. That's one. Engage more with the communities. Check the levels of the students and family situation and plan educational activities to bridge the gaps. Encourage teacher quality, to encourage teacher quality. Because something that you mentioned that I think is very important is how teachers are at the center of the educational process, how we are the main agents of the learning process. So we do have important, great responsibility, like you say, and it's very important to take this very seriously, but with a happy and a great spirit. We have to, someone said yesterday, you know, I really like how some of the things you were saying related to the other talks we had yesterday, the habits of mind, resilience, how we have to have the spirits up, we have to know strategies to cope, all these things that really will help us, our students, become better citizens and create better communities. So SIRS encourage teacher quality, create opportunities for informal study groups. Let me see what else people are writing. Engage and train student teachers. Know more about the community where you're going to be working at. make interviews to students and parents about the previous learning process, provide good environment and support for my community, continue professional development to help my students as much as I can, give the teacher more help to improve the way how to use technology. Some don't like it because they don't know it. So these are some things that people are writing on the chat. Empower the youth to contribute to education, create videos. Someone already says that she creates videos with encouraging messages and shares them with her students. Let's see, dedicate a couple of minutes of the session to talk about how students are doing and how they are doing. Sometimes they just need to vent for a couple of minutes before giving full attention to the lesson.
Definitely.
Yeah, this is very important. I found that, you can't just start like if you were a video that you're playing on YouTube, because you can just post the video on YouTube. You have to have that connection. The meetings are actually to try to simulate, to emulate what would be to have like a real life contact. So the chat box was fast going for a little while now. Okay, I have some more now. No. It's kind of stopped at the moment.
Okay. But they have very good ideas. And I want to share with everybody my plan. So this is my plan. Advocate for those who need it. Train teachers and make them aware, like what I'm doing today. Tell them about these things and tell them about these things from my experience. This is work that we have been doing in Honduras. Support, contribute, and model. Make sure you create that network with other teachers and contribute to the well-being, to the learning of other teachers, and be a model. Collaborate and be intentional about building and developing communities. Those communities, and many people have mentioned it in the comments, creating that support system, building community, that is very necessary. And right now, even more so. Integrate that sense of belonging into actions to create opportunities, making sure people feel that they have a voice, that they can speak, that they are part of that group. And I'm going to finish with what people said: be the change, be that change agent. Make sure you understand your role, your significant role, your important role, and the fact that you are making an impact in the life of a lot of people. If you have 30 students in your room, you're impacting not only those children, but their families too. If you have 60, it's an even greater impact. If you have taught for 20 years, you have made an impact in a lot of people's lives. So make sure that when you are providing this support system, you are allowing them to be empowered to be change agents as well. So that's my plan. Okay, now I cannot finish my presentation without telling you that you should join Tesol. So Paratesol is part of the affiliates of Tesol International Association, and Paratesol members should also consider joining Tesol. And I want to tell you why, not as an advertisement piece, but from my experience. Many of the things that I have done, many of the achievements that I have reached have been because I was part of Tesol, and not because I attended the conferences every year since 2007, but because it was this space to network with like-minded individuals, to create projects, to build that community that I was talking to you about. So Tesol International offers that to you. Paratesol offers that to you. So if you're not a member of Paratesol, make sure you join Paratesol, but make sure you also get a chance to join this larger worldwide community of teachers who are willing to come and build these communities of practice and share and learn together. So I had to say that. That's important for me to say. And then thank you. And I am ready for your questions if you have them.
So please write your questions on the chat box, those of you who have it. There's a few more comments, Grazzia, after we stopped. So someone wrote that with the increase of amount of screen connection and asynchronous activities are also important. Being a good example for students, build communities of practice, um, try to be positive in this crisis situation. So everybody thanks you. I would like to thank you, Gracia, on behalf of Paratesol. This is really inspiring, as someone put in the chat box as well. We really need more people like you, like-minded people, like you said, who can come and share their experiences, their situation, and solutions, because the solutions are sometimes just there, and recognize the importance that teachers have in the lives of people, that everyone can make an impact, even if it's just one student, that is like a whole family that they're making an impact on. So I'd like to thank you very much. This has been a great presentation. I think I'm going to also now, one part of my plan would be to become a Tesol international member, because sometimes we don't do it because of cost, but sometimes the benefits, they even out. So it's important for us to understand that being part of these communities is very important, because that allows us to grow as professionals, but also as people. So thank you, Gracia. We can't thank you enough for being here with us, not just to give your talk, but you've been participating in all the talks, and you've mentioned several of the other presenters, and it's really, really wonderful. I would like to also, like Gracia say, invite all the people present here to please become a Paratesol member. It's a way to get closer to other teachers. If you don't have a lot of time, you don't really have to be a volunteer, but we have benefits for members. And you can go to the exhibit hall right now and look at all the different things that our sponsors have given us. From the university, I would also like you to visit our space at the exhibit hall. We have a couple of things that I would like to invite you to. We have a congress, an applied linguistics congress that we're putting together in 2 months, that it should be probably as exciting as this conference, maybe not as lively and so many people, but we want to share research on the area of applied linguistics in relation to the different languages that we have here, national and foreign languages. So the English community is also going to participate, and also invite you to become part of a study that we're doing of English teachers, that we want to know more about your experiences during this time of COVID-19. So if you could please visit the space for the university, the Instituto Superior de Lenguas, and participate in the study. It will be very, very helpful to have a better understanding and to share what teachers have been going through this time. So it's important also for us academics to relay this information, so that the society can know what teachers are going through, what teachers are doing, all of the things that teachers are doing, because sometimes all of that said is not enough, and when studies come, then society listens more. So if you participate, then maybe you can help us contribute to the knowledge of society. So thank you, and Gracia, once again, thank you very much. And
thank you very much. Thank you, and congratulations to the Paratesol team, because I think you crafted all the topics so well that they connect. So you did a great job at putting together all the topics for your conference. Thank you very much.